Hi and welcome to the Jerusalem Watch. My name is Anarina Heyman and I'm standing in the city of David, home to the ancient biblical Jerusalem. And what we see here is literally the Bible coming to life. Written in Isaiah, it says, Hitna ari me'afar kumi, shake off your dust, arise, take your rightful place, O Jerusalem. Standing with me today is Joe Uziel from the Israeli Antiquities Authority. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. It must be such a privilege working here on a daily basis, getting a better understanding of the ancient city.
Well, it is, Anarina. I've been working in archaeology for over 20 years, but only about 5 years ago did I begin here when the Israel Antiquities Authority offered me the opportunity to take part in uncovering the city's past, and it really has been amazing since uncovering the day-to-day life of every single period that's been uncovered in Jerusalem over its 4,000 years of history. And you can see it right here behind us in the Givati parking lot excavations of the Israel Antiquities Authority, directed by Doron Ben-Ami and Yana Chekanovich, who excavated all of the layers going down from the later Islamic periods and all the way down to the First Temple period. Particularly outstanding is the Second Temple period, where we find here mikvaot, ritual baths, which were carved into the rock with steps leading down to make sure that Jews were pure when they were in Jerusalem.
Because it was Jerusalem, they had to keep the purification laws.
Well, yes, that's exactly it. During the Second Temple period, the Jews living in Jerusalem were very, very strict about purification, whether it's the mikvaot, the ritual baths that I mentioned before, or the vessels they were using. Interestingly, the most common thing we find in archaeology is pottery vessels, but pottery vessels become impure with contact with an impure person. And so in the Second Temple period, we find a plethora of stone vessels, because stone does not have impurity passed to it. So even if an impure person holds it, in my hand right now is one stone mug, which was carved out of chalk stone, and you can even see the burn marks here of the layer in which it was exposed in. And these are very, very common in Jerusalem in the Second Temple period, and we even know to the north where they were carved out from, the quarries in which the stone was cut out from in order to make these vessels, and you can see the craftsmanship behind making these. Incredible.
You just showed us here that it's burned. This means it was part of the destruction of Jerusalem?
Yes, in everywhere that we've been excavating in the city of David, we find a major, major destruction level of 70 CE. Whether it's here, whether it's down in the road, or whether it's in other areas, wherever the city was destroyed and burnt down, and the vessels which we find within this layer are often marked with the soot marks which were part of the fire.
And also, because of the purity laws, now we know how our forefathers kept kosher in the Holy Jerusalem. There is another place that you have to see. We're going to go a bit more down in the excavations to show you an amazing place. Let's go. I'm standing in a place that played a key part during the pilgrim festivals in the Second Temple period, leading all the way from the Siloam Pool up to Temple Mount. Now it is written in Isaiah, clear the road for the people, build up the highway and remove the rocks. This road is being tunneled out. And Joe, I believe not only the road, but amazing things were found during the excavations. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Not only did we discover the amazing road, but also a layer of finds covering the road that originated from the buildings that were alongside the road, which tell us about the day-to-day life in these buildings, which during the Roman destruction of Jerusalem collapsed onto the road. These finds include hundreds of pottery vessels, pieces of stone vessels, just as the one we just saw, archaeobotanical remains, which tell us about the grains and the seeds that were being eaten and grown in the area of Jerusalem, and above all that, hundreds and hundreds of coins. Most of these coins are from the 4 years of rebellion of the Jews against the Roman Empire, which were minted here in Jerusalem, and we even have some pieces of molds which were used to make these coins. And these coins were stamped with different things, including Cherut Zion, for the freedom of Zion, and a special one which I'm holding in my hand, which is a silver coin, which on one side has a branch growing 3 pomegranates, and it says on it, Yerushalayim HaKadoshah, Jerusalem the Holy. And if I flip the coin, I have a vessel depicted here, and on this side, it first of all tells me the year it says Shnat Shalosh, year 3 of the rebellion, because there were 4 years of the rebellion, and each year had its year stamped on the coins. And above that, written in ancient Hebrew, it says Chatzia shekel, half a shekel.
This is the half shekel coin that they used in the temple for the upkeep of the temple.
Exactly, as mentioned in the book that you're holding.
This is amazing. But you also mentioned a rebellion. What was this coin? Why was this coin printed for a rebellion?
Well, the coins were minted not only as currency, but as zuzim meaning to move, because they were handed from one to another in order to pass the message on of the rebellion, of the fight against Rome.
Joe, this is amazing. I believe that we found more treasures. So we're going to go a little bit up the road and discuss a little bit more of this.
Let's go.
You. We are standing now at the end of the road of the final ascent to the temple at the foot of Temple Mount. This is the road that the people traveled during the pilgrimage.
Yes, before we were downhill, halfway up the hill of the city of David, and here we're on that same road which led from the Siloam pool up to the Temple Mount in order for the pilgrims to take part in the ceremonies. But beneath that road, excavations of the Israel Antiquities Authority, led by Eli Shukrun, cleared the main drainage channel of the city. It was filled with sediment, which Eli wet sifted in order to find special finds, and I'm holding some of them right here. One of them is this gold bell. As you can see, has a small ring on top in order to attach it to the high priest's garment when he would take part in the ceremony in the temple on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year.
So we're talking about, as it is written in the Bible, he had to have 71 bells around the hem of his garment.
Exactly. Imagine 71 bells, and if you can hear very closely the shaking, this is an actual bell, so imagine 70 of these shaking, announcing the approach of the high priest.
Joe, that is amazing. I believe that you're holding another seal there, telling us a bit more about what happened inside the daily temple activities.
Well, here we have a seal saying Deka Leah, which is in Aramaic, pure for God. And we don't exactly know what the seal was used for, but because of the mention of purity, it may have been involved in part of the processes going on the Temple Mount, perhaps stamping between the switching of the priest's work. So while one priest exited, the other priest came in and was stamped as being pure for God entering the temple. That's a possibility.
Sort of your ticket into Temple Mount, saying that you are pure.
Exactly, like you get your stamp in your hand today when you go to a club.
Now, we spoke about the drainage tunnel, and I believe that there was quite a sad story that happened in the drainage tunnel.
Well, what we excavated in the drainage channel was mostly sediment of backfill, but within that backfill, vessels were found of the Jews who were hiding from the Romans on the eve of the destruction. They went into the drains, they cramped themselves in order to stay alive during the siege and destruction of Jerusalem.
So this is the Roman destruction, but we also saw that you said that there were 2 layers of destruction, one being the Babylonian. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think we can get a better idea and a more vivid picture if we go to another place.
Let's go. And just to orientate ourselves right now, we are standing on the eastern slope of the city, and we are actually standing inside a house from the First Temple period.
Yeah, we're standing in one of Yigal Shiloh's excavation areas. And Yigal Shiloh was a pioneering archaeologist who excavated many areas in the city of David. And amazingly, he discovered the destruction of the First Temple city. And we're standing in one of the houses covered in destruction during that time.
Joe, but this area also attests to the many battles that enveloped Jerusalem, and you are holding arrowheads that attest to that. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Interestingly, Jerusalem was not destroyed many times. We have 2 major destruction levels in Jerusalem's ancient history. One at the end of the Second Temple period, 70 CE by the Romans. The second by the Babylonians, which began with the siege in 597 and ended in 586 with the destruction of the First Temple. And these destruction layers are really come to life here in this area where we see the houses of First Temple Jerusalem buried in their destruction with the many vessels destroyed and with the weaponry used to both fight to conquer the city and to fight off those trying to conquer. I'm holding in my hand 2 arrowheads discovered in the Babylonian destruction layer.
Now, how do you know that this is Babylonian?
Well, in archaeology, we work with something we call typology, types. Basically, if I use a modern example, if I take a look at a car from today, it will not look the same as a car did 50 years ago. And the same thing is true in archaeology of every type of find that we have, whether it's pottery vessels or weapons such as these arrowheads. So as we can see here, these arrowheads have these 3 prongs. They're not the usual flat leaf shape, and these are typical of the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem.
And what is it made from? Because it's got like a greenish, bluish color.
Well, these are made from bronze, and you can see here the hole in which the arrow would have been inserted. Okay, the wooden part of the arrow would have been inserted.
Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure.
We have seen so much of the destruction of Jerusalem today, but the Bible also says, speak tenderly to Jerusalem and tell her that her sad days are over. By joining the Jerusalem Watch, you can join a lot of people all around the world that are not going to help us only to uncover more of her glorious past, but also accompany her to her promised future to become a praise to the earth. Thank you so much for joining us today.